Okay, let's take a look at files. With files, we've got you again on the documentation. There's a very good video here about working with files from Nicholas, and that also was covered in the Create or Cloning Rareable series, which he produced a few months ago. So it's worth spending some time going through all of those videos to learn a bit more about creating Moralis files. But Moralis.file lets you store application files in the cloud, and that's particularly useful for files that would be too big to fit in the regular Moralis object. And that's typically for things like videos, music, maybe even images, and other large binary data. And there are a couple of ways that you can create a file. Also remember that by creating a file, you have access to the triggers that we covered out in the cloud code section. So the first way that you can create a file is with a base64 encoded string, like this example, or alternatively, you can create a file from an array of byte values, like this example. If you want to specify a content type with a third parameter, for example over here, then you can do that, but typically Moralis will auto-detect the file type that you are uploading based on the extension of the file. If you're using your browser, you'll need to use a HTML element for the input type. Just simply use a file input tag, select the type to file, and include any other data that you want to, such as an ID. You'll need to build a click handler and get a reference to the file. This one's actually using jQuery. It's selected the file upload from the ID. It's checking if there are any files, makes a reference to the first file, creates a name, and then runs new Moralis file with that information. A couple of things to mention. If you are uploading a file with the same name multiple times, for example, photo.jpg, you don't need to worry about file name collisions because it's the object ID that separates one item from another, and that's created automatically in the Moralis database for you. But it is important that the file has a file extension, otherwise it's not going to know what type of file it is. Once you've created the Moralis file, you'll need to save the Moralis file, otherwise it won't be stored in the database. And you just simply use the save method. It returns a promise which you can then work on if you need to. In Node.js, you can fetch images and other files. Here's an example. When it comes to objects, you will be able to associate a Moralis file with a Moralis object, but you'll just have to complete the save as in the previous step that we've just gone through. Here's an example. And a useful tip here is that when you're saving files in your cloud code, make sure that you use the master key. Here's the example of how to do that. You can retrieve the file contents. Here's an example using jQuery, and an example deleting files as well. And at the bottom, adding metadata and tags. You just simply need to use the add metadata and add tag methods, which when you create a brand new file would be methods that are available on that file. Okay, so that's files. We'll take a look at IPFS. Moralis has native support for IPFS. Once more, there's a video here that will go into detail for that. You don't need to configure the IPFS in the Moralis server now. It's enabled by default. If you need to save files to IPFS, you can use the save IPFS method. There is a maximum file size limit here, currently set at 1 GB. The video will explain a little bit more, but when you're using this method, it gives you access to a couple of new methods, which would be the IPFS and the hash method, which you'd be able to use to get additional information about the file that you've saved. It's not just files, it's objects as well that you can save. Moralis will automatically create the buffer from the base64 provided, and that means that you could even upload other base64 encoded files like images. You can get IPFS files using a GET request. For example, this link here takes you to this, and that uses the default Moralis gateway here. So take a look through the videos that are in this part of the documentation. That will familiarize yourself a lot more with how you can use IPFS with Moralis. We'll head on over to tools now. At Moralis, we've created a number of helper functions because we find that some of the standard Web3 methods are inconvenient at converting. Maybe users want to input a normal, regular monetary value of something that they're used to, but instead they need it to be in Wei. For example, 0.5 ETH is actually that many Wei. So 1 Ethereum would have 18 decimals, so half would, I guess, have 17 decimals. So I'm not sure how big that number actually is. Maybe like 500 trillion. So generally you'll need a converter function, and Moralis does have this. So inside Moralis units token, for example, you would be able to convert that to Wei. You could do the same with units.eth, which would be for a native asset. You can convert from way, but just be aware that you'll only be able to use these helper functions using the SDK. They're not yet available in Cloud Code, and that will likely be added soon. The CLI we pretty much covered already. You can update your cloud code, you can update plugins, you can use your local web development environment, you can get logs. There's a few things you can do with this. And as you scroll down this list and look at things like watching cloud folders, connecting to local dev chains, updating or creating servers, deploying or undeploying, adding contracts, etc., the majority of these items in this part of the documentation have videos that you'll be able to watch and learn plenty from. Okay, we'll move over to website hosting. Now, this is mainly for static hosting only. So if you need to put your website live, then you can use your Moralis server to do that. Here's a video explaining how you can use the CLI to do exactly that. On sending emails, Moralis has an integration with SendGrid. So there's information here about how you can complete that integration, and also on our YouTube channel. And if you went into type SendGrid in our channel, you'd be able to find another one here by Malik that will help you as well. React Moralis, we have now an Ethereum boilerplate that you can find on GitHub. There's again a video about that. Here, Ethereum DApp boilerplate literally will save you months of development time using our React boilerplate. You can find that by searching for Ethereum boilerplate in Google with a top result. And you'll go over to our GitHub repository. It's got nearly 1,000 stars on here, and you'll be able to fork this and use it in your application. Full documentation is available down here as well, explaining all the different components that are available and the different hooks that you can use. And we'll be seeing a lot more of this over the next few months, as there'll likely be some additional videos and courses that we will add to this on React for you. If we go over to the plugins section, we will be utilizing this a lot more over the next few months. But if we go to our Moralis dashboard, you can find your plugins over here. When I started recording the content for the course, we had 2 plugins. We now have 4. So I would imagine this will just continue to grow. We've got the Fiat on-ramper. You can buy crypto using this plugin directly from your application. We've got the 1inch plugin, which will enable you to build decentralized exchanges directly in your application. We've also incorporated this into our boilerplate, React boilerplate. We are now going to be providing with the power of OpenSea. With just a few lines of code, you can have the power of that in your Moralis app, and also lazy minting NFTs with these Rarible NFT tools. So go and take a look through those and keep an eye on them when new ones are released.